You, Irene.
Hey,
Okay, folks.
You have to, you have to.
where's Lois? Is Lois Turner? Oh,
Yeah, I'm here.
how was your birthday?
It's today.
It's today.
We just celebrated her birthday.
Oh, okay.
We can do it again.
Okay, good morning, folks. Good morning,
Morning.
folks.
Morning.
It's
Good
good to see
morning.
so many people out so early on a bright, beautiful Saturday morning. We're gonna start our meeting with the singing of the Lift Every Voice and Sing. And Marion, you've got it right here.
All right. Are you coming?
Lift every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring.
Oh, yeah. So you have two or three of them that they rotate around.
Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening sky. Let it resound. Let it resound. As the rolling sea. I like this part right here. Come on. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. They sing the rising Let us march on till victory.
It's okay, the door's open because we can't see if any interrupts.
Now we add a little something to it, just to encourage you. We're gonna take you to church later. Let's go! We'll keep marching right until the victory is won. To all my brothers out there. Hold your head up, brothers, till the victory is won. To all my sisters in the struggle. Keep believing, sister, till the victory is won. Till that day. Till that day comes. Hey. Let us march on to victory. Till victory is won. Is won.
Another great rendition. And this morning, we're gonna have a moment in history, and we're gonna be spoken to by Joseph Hurd.
Stop doing cardio.
Hello.
It sounds kind of backwards, right? Well, believe
Welcome
me,
back.
it's actually true. Stop.
I don't know what that was.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Hurd was born in Kansas. He was raised in Pueblo, Colorado. He's valedictorian of Pueblo High School. He's got his AB from Harvard College, where he was magna cum laude. He's Phi Beta Kappa, and he's class marshal for his class at Harvard. He have received a national scholarship, Harvard National Scholarship for both college and medical school. He and his wife, Jean, have started their own scholarship fund, and maybe they can give us some lessons on how to enhance ours. He's board certified obstetrics and gynecology. He's a major in the U.S. Army working at Fort Knox. He's a member of Omega Psi Phi, the Boule, the AMA, Massachusetts Medical Society. He's president of Harvard Medical Alumni Association. He's married to Jean Elizabeth Challenger, and they have two sons, Joseph III and Jason, and he also has 6 grandchildren. And his golf game's not too bad either. Joe is going to talk to us this morning about lessons learned from genealogy research. Joe, you got it.
All right, let me get on screen share here. I see if I can get. Did you authorize screen share?
Marion?
Okay, I'm the co-host. All right. Let me
Okay,
try
yeah,
screen share.
Okay.
Here, yeah.
All right, and now I can go to, we got it here. Let's see here. Just a minute. Let me get,
Yeah.
all right, here. Here we are. All right, I'm going to talk about my family research over the last 30 or more years on Blacks in colonial America in the first 150 to 200 years. I am going to try to do it in 30 minutes, so let me get started. I have been working on this for quite a while. I must have amassed 75 to 80 books on the family history and genealogical research. And that provides the basis of most of my information. However, I refer everyone to Ancestry.com. If you're interested in doing this for yourself, that provides a very easy way to get started. And once you get into it, you will pick up much information from other people who are researching the same thing. I also strongly urge you, if you're really interested, to have your DNA tested, because once you have your DNA drawn, you will get linkages to other people, many of whom you do not know or have never heard of, that may be very important to your talk, to your work. My talk is going to cover the family history from Africa. Angola was the primary location of at least one branch of the family. And they came to the United States on the first ship, the San Juan Bautista, landing at Hampton, Virginia. They worked as indentured servants and obtained their freedom through indentured servitude in the branch I'm talking about. Many of them were not slaves. They were mulattoes, intermarried, and I'm going to talk a lot about that because it has a bearing on how far you can get with your family tree. The family migrated from Virginia all the way to Kansas, where I was born, and then beyond. I'm focusing on 4 families: the Sweat or Sweet family, Cornish, Tans, and the Gothards, who were our most recent. This book, Free African Americans of North Carolina, Virginia, and South Carolina. It's published in 3 volumes. Each one is about 500 pages, but it's received many awards for excellence on genealogy research, and it covers almost all of the early 1619 to 1800 free Blacks in Africa, free Blacks in America. It has details on 650 families, almost all of the ones who were, I want to get myself out of the screen share here, just a minute. There. Almost all of whom were in the Heineck book. He's looked at many, many manuscript sources, colonial records, courts, wills, deeds, marriage, and so forth. And he has extensive documentation on briefly, the colonial there were blacks in America in pre-colonial times. They've been recorded as being among the Spanish who brought slaves to Haiti. In the early St. Augustine, Florida, had slaves aboard, but they disappeared into the Indian tribes. Sir Walter Raleigh brought English to Jamestown. The early colony was lost, but they were starting their mission to colonize, to baptize into the Christian religion, recover out of the arms of the devil those Native Americans whom they found, and to add more members to the numbers of the elect. They had difficulty getting started. The Indians killed many of them. They had many starving times. They weren't very good farmers. In 1617, John Rolfe introduced tobacco as a cash crop, but being gentry, they needed more help. They could have hired help, servants, apprentices for times, and then indentured servant. This was the primary means of labor in the pre-colonial times. You promised to work for terms of 4, 7, 21, even 31 years. They would pay your passage from England to Jamestown, and they would provide you with food and lodging and punishment when it was necessary. They could increase the term of your servitude
What's the number?
for 5 years or more.
202.
I'm-
Uh-huh.
Can you hear
37.
me? Can you hear me? Okay,
Yes, Joe.
all right. Slavery wasn't mentioned in the first 20 to 30 years of pre-colonial era until 1640, when John Punch ran away with 2 other indentured servants. And then they sentenced him to involuntary servitude for life, or in other words, slavery. The indentured servants had many laws which would permit them to complain about their master. They had access to the courts. Once their indenture was over, they could get property with their so-called freedom dues, a suit of clothes and some corn, and become a regular member of the society. And this was true for the indentured servants. And as you will see, it was also true for the blacks when they arrived. Toward the end of the 17th century, after the blacks had arrived, slavery began to be introduced into the colonies. It had been present for many centuries in other parts of the world, in the Caribbean, in Mexico, in Brazil, and so forth, but it was not true in early colonial America. The majority of Black Americans who can trace their roots to colonial America have ancestors from the West African countries along the Gulf of Guinea, including Congo, Cameroon, Nigeria, Benin, Togo, Ghana, the Ivory Coast. And I'm going to start talking about my own DNA at this point. My DNA shows that I have these percentages of African, England and Northwest European, Wales, and some Spanish blood, but by and large Scotland. The only 1% of my DNA references Indigenous America, which is important because of a myth that was prominent in my family for many years, that we had large amounts of Indian blood. As one genealogist wrote, if you can't prove it, it's mythology. Once you can prove it, preferably from more than one source, then it does become true genealogy. But this is our origins by my genealogy. In 1619, a British privateer sailing under papers from the Dutch came to Angola and loaded 350 Africans. And they were on their way to Mexico. Veracruz, where there were silver mines, but they were boarded by a British privateer, or basically a pirate, on a ship called the White Lion. And they were looking for gold and silver, but they found 350 Black people. He took 60 of them aboard his ship and another ship, the Treasurer, and left to go back to England, but ran into difficulty with the weather and storms and needed more food. So they pulled into Point Comfort, Virginia, which is near present-day Hampton, Virginia. And that's where they, in the James River, and that's where they unloaded 20 and odd Blacks at Hampton. They traded them for food and water. And this has been well documented in many different books. This one is by Catherine Knight, who is a distant relative of my own. Her husband is a member of the first 20 and odd families. It's won many awards for genealogical research. I think we can rely on the accuracy of most of what she writes. She identifies Margaret Cornish, who was born in 1610 in Angola. She was the daughter of a tribal chieftain in Angola living on the Luanda River. She was captured, brought aboard the San Juan Batista, going to Veracruz, attacked and boarded by the privateers of the White Lion. She was brought to Jamestown in the first group, but did not stay there for the first year. She went on from Jamestown to England with the captain, Captain Robert Jope, and came back in 1622, which is when we have the first report of her. Robert Swett was an Englishman, an indentured servant who came to Virginia in 1638 aboard the ship the Guiding Star as an indentured servant on the Robert Shepherd farm. He was brought to court in 1640 for having begotten with child a Negro woman servant belonging to Lieutenant Robert Shepherd. This was Margaret Cornish. He was placed in stocks and she was publicly whipped. They went on to live a married life until he died in 1640 in Jamestown from injuries occurred fighting the Powhatan Indians. Margaret had previously been married to John Gowen, who was also an indentured servant, and she had a son named Michael in 1638. But once she married Robert, she was divorced by John Gowen and began their family. There is a record of her in the census called The Living and the Dead in Virginia, a list of names of all those living in Virginia done in 1623. And Margaret and Robert's name are there. Catherine has written a very good series of books. It's fiction, but it tends to record the details as recorded in multiple documents and historical records about Robert and Margaret's life. This is the genealogy that we've been able to trace using all of these sources from Robert Swett and Margaret through their son, Anthony, and on down to the Tan family, which are my direct ancestors, which we can find in all of the US censuses starting in 1790, down through my grandmother, Nellie Kendon, my dad, and myself. I'm not going to dwell on this. I'm going to go on to who did they marry? Margaret and Robert had 3 boys and a girl, and the girl married a descendant from John Kecoughtan. John Kecoughtan is also well documented in the Heinig genealogy books. He was born about 1636. He had been a slave, but he had been promised that he would be freed by the family that had him. He went to court in 1653 because the term that they had agreed on was 11 years if he did carefully and honestly perform his labor. The master refused to release him because he had not lived up to the agreement, they said. And the reason was that he had laid with a servant maid and got her with child. But he had witnesses that said he had done good service for Mr. Ho, and the court ordered him freed. So John Kecoughtan's descendant married one of the Tans, and from that lineage comes down to my great-grandmother, my grandmother, and me. I'm going to skip this. Early on in colonial times, we're not talking about large numbers. There were 23 in 1625, and then on down to, by 1700, only 16,000 Blacks in Virginia. And even at the time of the Revolution, there were only 210,000. So we're not talking about large numbers, but this group here, by and large, were beginning to see the ravages of slavery. Heineck, in doing his research, belies two prominent myths. One was that most of the so-called mulatto or interracial children were because of white slave masters and Black women. But in his survey of 650 families, he was able to document that the child came from a white servant woman in 443 families, from freed Black slaves in 50 families, Indians 29, and white men only 19. So it shows that the bulk of the mulattoes in pre-Columbian times, pre-colonial times, came from Black men and white women. This is very important because there was a group in a community called the Melungeons in Tidewater, Virginia, who did not wish to admit that they were related to Blacks, and they always claimed that they were related to Indians or white slave masters. But Heineck was able to show that they were not the offspring of white Southern planters and helpless Black slaves. Most of the Africans were never chattel slaves. They were frequently Black men freed from indentured servitude, just like many white servants of the 17th century. Less often, they purchased their freedom or were freed upon the deaths of their masters. So it bears repeating. This is quite different, however, from the mulattoes in plantation times. Once you get into the 17, 18, and 1800s, the masters did impress themselves upon their Black slaves to increase the number of their slaves, because at that point, they were valuable commodities. The slaves had value and provided the bulk of the wealth of the Black planters in the 17 and 1800s. So Heineck, in his book, Free African Americans, provides evidence that less than 1% of all free Africans born in the colonial times were born of white slave owners. Now, I've referred several times to the rise of slavery toward the end of the 17th century, and I'm going to skip over this slide and get to the Revolutionary War period, 1780 to 1800. And Heineck has a wonderful book, well detailed on Blacks in the American Revolution. You'll see among the list of those who served the Tans, Anthony, Jacob, Joseph Tan served in the Charleston, South Carolina militia regiment. I'm going to speak some more about the Tan family because they, in the 1800s, they ingratiated themselves into the white community in some ways. Here is a record from one of the Shaker villages who said that John Tan, a colored man, had died in June 1811. His wife, Peggy, a real white woman, was near 50 when she died in 1814. This is a photocopy of the page of their history book that talked about Peg Tan departed this life, age not accurately known, but must have been near 50. This was the companion of Anthony Tan that died on 17 June 1811. She was a real white woman, whatever that means. I come now to the star of my Tan lineage, Austin Tan. Austin Tan was born in 1790 in South Carolina, but he left South Carolina and went to Lawrenceville, Illinois, which was on the Wabash River, just across the Ohio, at the point where Illinois, Indiana, and Kentucky meet. This was a popular crossing place for runaway slaves to get into Indiana and make their way along the Wabash up to the north, where they could get Canada and be free. Austin Tan lived there from about 1810 to 1869 when he died. He played a large part in the history of Lawrence County, and he's written about in many books regarding his working to build a fort called Fort Allison around 1812. He was present when Governor William Henry Harrison, later President Harrison, came to negotiate with the Indian chief Tecumseh regarding the security of the people who lived in and around southern Illinois. Tecumseh and his brother, Tenquatawa, had about 1,500 to 2,000 Indians who were under their command, and they provided a great deal of difficulty for the early settlers in Lawrenceville. So Anthony Tan helped to build a fort called Fort Allison, which they lived in when the Indians were coming to attack. There's a story in this record of once he was on his way back from a grist mill with 2 bags of corn on his horse and was chased by Indians, and his horse outran them. He hid in a forest, was able to escape them. All of his corn had leaked out, but he was able to get back to his home safely. Austin Tan was a marvelous man. I've been to Lawrence, Illinois. I've been to his cemetery where he's buried, and I've been to family reunions of the Morris family that still lives there and owns a farm there. But he's my favorite of my Tan relatives. I'm not going to say a lot about the Underground Railroad that went through Lawrence, Illinois, but it was written about in a book by Colonel Cochran. Colonel Cochran was injured in the Civil War, and he could not work. So he wrote many books on the history of Indiana, Illinois, and the Southern Illinois area, and has a lot of details about the Underground Railroad. In the lineage of Austin Tan, way out in the intermarried groups, there is Harriet Beecher Stowe was intermarried with the Tan family, and Ernest Hemingway is my 7th cousin, 2-time remove of the wife of the 3rd cousin, 1-time remove, whatever that is. But their names appear in the family tree. Now I'm going to come to the Gothard family. The Gothard family were descendants from the Tan family. Isaac Gothard was a ne'er-do-well white Englishman who moved to Indiana with his wife, and she got smallpox, and he was not immune to smallpox, so he hired a Black man to help care for her. And when she was recovered, the black man left town and went on his way. But 8 months later, she delivered twin mulatto sons, John and Isaac Gothard Jr. We do not know who the friendly sperm donor was, but his name and his descendants must appear in my DNA relatives. I've been trying to interest Skip Gates into looking in that list to help me try to find who that sperm donor was. But Isaac Gothard accepted the twin boys. He thought that because she was so close to the black man, that impressed on her to have the pregnancy marked by the black man. He did not know much about genetics. The story is recorded in many history books, but the main one that I want to talk about is the History of Vandenberg County, published in 1889. And I have photocopies of the pages from that. An interesting story about the boys: when they were 5 or 6 in 1824, they were kidnapped. And a neighbor man, Mr. Patrick Calvert, who knew them, chased the kidnappers, but lost them when they were crossing a river. Mr. Calvert was injured, but went back to his farm and told his friends about the incident. A year later, he was in Arkansas on business trip, and he found the boys. They recognized him. He got the police to have them released to him, and he brought them back to Lawrence, raised them to adulthood. When they were 18, he taught them to be carpenters, gave them a horse, a rifle, and $100, and sent them on their way. John Gothard, who was one of the twins, married Miranda Tan in Lawrence, Illinois. They had 8 children, among them one of my ancestors. He died in Kansas at age 81. His brother, Isaac Gothard Jr., married and raised a family. He joined the Union Army and served in the Union Army, was killed, was wounded and captured, and died in Andersonville prison, the infamous prison that the Confederates had for captured Union soldiers. And he died at age 45. I think I'm running, a little close on time, so let me move along. I want to finish this. Among the Civil War participants in the family, these are all names of my relatives who served in the Civil War. And you'll see there the name of Isaac Gothard, some of the Tans and Lewises and other members of the family. So the line from John Gothard is Rosella Gothard, my great-grandmother, Nellie Kendall, my grandmother, my dad, and myself. There are many other family members. Once you start on genealogy, you got to trace many rabbits down many rabbit holes. But John and Miranda Tan come on down through the Kendall, the Peter Kendall, my great grandfather, and on down through my dad, and there's Jean and myself. There is Jean and myself in the tree. The family resemblance is very strong, I think. This is Austin Tan, and his granddaughter was Nellie Hurd. That's my grandmother. She was 4'11", and she had 12 children, 10 of them boys, who ranged from 5'9" to 6'2". But the family picture with her in the middle of them is quite remarkable what one tiny woman can produce. This is her sisters. Her father married 3 times. His first wife was a Mrs. Garcia, and she had George Kendall with her. George B. Kendall is the half brother of the three Kendall girls. George Kendall is the grandfather of Marcia Kendall Smith, who is my second cousin. She is not related to the Tans and the Gothards. She was related through Kendall and Searcy, but they're half brothers to Emma, Nellie, and Lucy. Nellie is my grandmother. And the lineage from there is quite extensive. The DNA match shows that people who have had their DNA studied, there are 382, but there are 22,000 total DNA matches that this is what I've been working on, and that's a big, big mountain to cross. But this is where our family is distributed from that beginning in 1619. We're now all across the country, some in Hawaii, some in Mexico, and some still living in England. So this is what I learned from the work on my family tree, that the pre-colonial American story is quite inspiring. We don't have an awful lot of information about the time, but we do know at least the bloodline. We know the names of the participants. We know where they were. We know where some of them are buried, and we know who their descendants have been through the 10 generations since that time. Thank you so much.
Joe, stop sharing, and that was very outstanding. That was what, oh, he's muted. Joe, you muted?
No, let me just get,
Sharon.
Okay, there we go. Okay. Joe, thank you, thank you, thank you. That was outstanding. You did a tremendous job, and I think everyone is appreciative of what you did and look forward to the next chapter. Any questions for Joe? Mariam, was anything on the chat?
Yes, there was one question. The question was, where did it go? Where did it go? Is there a collection for Maryland similar to Hennick's for North Carolina, Virginia, and South Carolina?
yes, there is. There is a full volume on Maryland and Delaware, and I have it here somewhere on the floor. Here it is.
Wow.
Maryland and Delaware, second edition by Paul Heinig. It's available on Amazon. I think they're about $50, but he goes all through Maryland and Delaware and takes them through to the Revolutionary War. And this is his other book on African Americans in the American Revolution, and that includes Maryland and Delaware. And that's available also on Amazon.
And Marcia Kendall Smith says, thanks, Cousin Joe.
All right.
Hey, Joe, if I can just add something, those Hennick references are also available through online, because I use them. You can go to Google and put in Paul Hennick, and you can bring up those the documents. I have two relatives or ancestors that are in there. One of them are the Drews, and the other is the Finleys. But in any case, you can go online,
Yeah.
and you put in Paul Hennick's name and search around, and you could get those links and go through the data without paying anything.
Yeah, I printed, well, you paste, I mean, if you want to print it, I printed out the first volume, about 200 pages before I bought them. But then I needed the books, so I went ahead and paid the money for them.
Okay.
But it's you're quite right, they are
Good.
available online.
Very good. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. Thank you. That was outstanding.
Thank
Any
you
other
all.
comments?
No other
No?
comments. Oh.
Okay,
One other comment. Can you put the titles on the chat?
Can you do what?
Can you put the titles of the books in the chat?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
okay, thank you, Joe. As you know, David is involved with a Black History event over in the Villages. So he sent me his report, which I will read to you. Heartfelt thank you to everyone who supported our attendance and participated in the Sarasota Manatee School Board meetings over the last few months. School board members and staff have expressed their appreciation for the consistent and substantial engagement of members of Minnesota Asala and our allies. Our presence has provided a welcome and positive counterweight to the disruptive and angry protests from groups protesting vaccines, masking, and teaching of critical race theory. 2, we hope to conduct our March meeting as a hybrid one, meeting in person at the Betty Johnson Library and by Zoom. If the COVID numbers continue to drop, we will hold our first in-person meeting in 2 years. We will make the decision during the March Executive Committee meeting. Watch for the announcement. Third highlighted item, we have had a very successful 2022 membership campaign, details of which you will hear from Rita Smith when she reports. We want to add my thanks to all who have renewed their membership and those new members as well. We appreciate your willingness to invest in our mission, and we are very interested in your feedback and participation. Fourth point is concerning Black History Month. Black History Month was wonderful and exhausting. Thanks to all who participated in our collaborations with the Hermitage, WSLR, Sunclose Black Art Collaborative, New College, the Ringling, and others. Special thanks to our Education Committee and the successful Beyond Black History Month, which you will hear about more in their report. Thanks as well to Dr. Willie Clemens and the Church of the Redeemer in bringing Ambassador Andrew Young to the Sarasota area once again. Additional points that were not in his report is highlights from the latest edition of our newsletter. It covers the periods of February through April 22nd. This is the 4th edition of the newsletter, and I just wanted to highlight that t-shirts with our logo are available for a donation to our 360 Scholarship Program. If you missed the Plessy versus Ferguson, you can watch the video via the newsletter. April 1st and 2nd, we hope that you'll be involved with the Howard Thurman presentation. And March 5th through 6th, look out for Art in the Park over at University Park, where our own Ron Mason will be making a presentation. Any comments, questions? I'd like to ask if there's any questions about the minutes from the last meeting of January 22nd. Those were sent out to everyone, and if you have any comments or corrections, we'd like to have them. Hearing none, we'll go right on to the treasurer's report. Alan?
Good morning, everyone. As you notice from looking at the treasurer's report, we've changed the format of the report. The executive board asked me to put all of our finances on one page so we can tell a story of where our money came from and how we spent it. So let me begin with the beginning bank balance. The important thing to recognize here is that this has 5 funds. 4 of these are designated and locked up for special uses, and one of them is general spending. The first one, New College of Florida, is the funding from New College for our student intern. The 360 plan, everybody knows about that. Our scholarship fund has two parts, general scholarship and a SNEED fund. The film project is the Bernard Watson Film Project, and our working capital, day-to-day money comes out of the general checking. And so those are our 5 sources of funding. Again, all of these are designated for special purposes except for the general checking account. If we move to the
Alan,
second
can
column,
you put that on the screen?
I don't have it lined up,
Oh, okay,
okay? But I can send it out again after the meeting, okay?
okay.
All right, so again, the first column is our sources of funding, talks about our designated accounts, which cannot be touched except for special purposes approved by the board, requested by a manager of those particular funds. The second column, January activity, corresponds to our traditional profit and loss statement. And by creating this form, we can see where the money came from, where it was spent, and what we have as a final balance. So if you look at the middle column, our negative number there is negative 18,000. If you look at the principal items within that column, the majority of that money, that expenditure comes from financing our scholarships for our students. So we financed 14 students for this particular time period, 11 regular students and 3 SNEED students. And that accounts for the primary difference. If you go to the last column, we show that we begin the month of January, or month of February actually, with a balance of 116,618. So again, our objective, and I think we accomplished it, is to put all of our finances, our practices, and our uses of funds on one page, so we can all understand where the money came from and where it's going. Any questions on the new format for the Treasurer's report? Okay, hearing no questions, that's my report.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. Great revision, and I hope everyone gets a chance to see the new format. So, okay, we're gonna move on to the membership report. Last month we had 315 members, and I hope Rita's got a new report that shows members. Rita?
Hold on, I'm trying to turn the video on. Sorry. Anyway, good morning, everyone. You're right. We had a very robust membership campaign, and we're sitting at right at 360 members, including 16 institutional members. We have 22 general members, 101 senior members, 94 dual memberships, and a few associate members. David wanted me to talk about the benefit of membership, of being a member of ASALH. And as you know, ASALH is the world's oldest learned society, established by Dr. Carter G. Woodson in 1915, that empowers through knowledge, racial understanding, and appreciation of African-American history and culture. When you were new, we asked you to tell us about your interests and hobbies. And our education committee is going to be reaching out to you based on your responses to get you engaged and get you more engaged in ASALH. That's what we would like, to have all our members actively engaged in ASALH. As you know, through ASALH, we offer a lot of different programs and things, and we want you to be involved in the programs that interest you. Your membership with ASALH includes access to the national ASALH. You can access it through asalh.org. There you will find a myriad of opportunities to become engaged. You have access to the new research in the field of Africana and African American studies, access to national renowned African American scholars and leaders, access to the latest publications, by noted authors in all areas of African American history, life, and culture. Can you not hear me, Gary?
Yes, I
Hello?
can. Yes, we can. We can hear you, Rita.
No, I see a funny look on your face. I was thinking you might not have been able to hear me. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay.
We can hear you. Your head is down on the lower part of the screen.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was trying to fix that. I'm actually at the office and I'm having technical issues. So anyway, again, thanks to all our members for helping us with the renewal process. Going on the renewing, like I said, we're staying strong at 360 members. So are there any questions?
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Rita. We're gonna go out of order now. Bo has to leave early, so we'll have the good and welfare report now. Are you ready, Bo?
I'm ready. Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me?
And
Gary asked me about if I ever get any good news, and I told him that we would like to have good news. So if any member has people who have got new jobs, so have had in the family, so forth, we'd like to know that so we can report it to the membership. But going on what I have, on the 12th of February, we had one of our members, a longtime member, Mrs. Arlene Jones, pass, and a service was held at St. Wilford Episcopal Church on Wednesday, the 23rd. And many of the members attended the memorial service. Another member, Ashby Hobson, passed away on February the 10th, and his service will be at 1 p.m. on March the 19th at the location and the address of the ceremony has been distributed to the membership by email. We also lost Larry Stewart, who died on February the 6th, and his service was in Stewart family was sent condolences to Ruston, Virginia, the same week, the week after he passed. Also received yesterday some news that Jean and Linda Crump lost their nephew, Adam Howland, on the 22nd of February. He was just 45 years old. Well, condolences will be sent to the family today. However, there is some good news. We had a longtime member by the name of William Coleman. He's 87 years old, and he is confined in a facility, and somehow or another he walked away from the facility and was missing for 4 days. He was finally found and is back in the facility, and he's alive and well and seemed to have suffered no adverse conditions after being away for 5 days. We don't know the circumstances on how he was able to walk away, nor have we received any information on whether the sheriff's department found him or who found him. But anyway, he's back and he's well. That's the end of my report. Are there any questions?
thank you, Bo. Thank you very much. We're going to move back up to the 6th item. Marion, any correspondence that you want to share with us?
Yes, I have some correspondence. I can't find myself. All right. All right. Correspondence. We received mail of $810 for our 360 campaign. We received scholarship donations from Palm Beach Atlantic University for $250 for the scholarship fund. We received a communication report from the Community Foundation for the Shirley Ford report. We received a thank you note from Marsha Kendall Smith, thanking her for the note that we sent her for getting well. We received a thank you note from Herman and Wanda Gilbert, condolences to her and her family. We received $200 from a family for Zoom cost, which will be sent to Alan. And I wanted to alert everybody, I sent out an email to everybody for members only directory. That's another benefit of becoming a member. You get access to a directory. The email will go out next week with instructions on how to access the directory. Several of you have emailed info@Minnesota, Florida email address asking why can't I access it. The reason why you can't access it yet is your email addresses have to be loaded into a form which will be sent out. Follow the instructions. No need to contact me when you forget your email. You go to the page, there's a link, you click the link, and you create a new email. You can create a new form, create a new password. Then you'll have access to it. We ask you, please do not share the email addresses with your friends. Please do not share your password with your friends. It's your password. The directory is for you to print out. It's to save us money. We will update it. If you find that your email address is not there, if you find that any of your addresses are incorrect, we will update that. Just send it to the email address at the bottom of the page on the ASALH website, and it's a lot less expensive to update an email address online than it is in a printed brochure. So thank you very much, and that's my report. Any questions?
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you, Paul, for taking care of her. Okay, I do not see Fred on. Is Fred on?
Don't say Fred.
I have not seen him. I
No.
see that we went, Fred, you there?
I'll see you.
No, Fred said he wasn't coming today.
Oh, okay. Wish you had told me. Okay, so let's move on to our committee reports. Willie, Paul, Arts and Culture. I didn't see Willie or Paul on. Does anybody know anything about Willie or Paul? Okay, Bo, you're gonna have to get on them. Harriet, I did see Harriet. Harriet?
I'm here.
Okay, great.
Good morning, everybody. Our scholarship committee is working really hard, reviewing the applications and getting ready for the interviews in March. Then we look forward to our award ceremony coming up at the end of May, which it will be determined if it can be held in person, hopefully so. And that's what we're looking for. And then also it's always in conjunction with the last meeting of the year. So that's what we're doing right now, hard at work, looking at the applications, seeing all these wonderful, wonderful students and their achievements. And we really thank you so much, everybody, for all of your donations for the 360 fund. Since we haven't been able to hold the Randy Rankin fundraiser, we really are in need of that help and support, and we thank you all. The slides, if you remember, I think it was the last meeting or two, we had shown the slides presentation of all of these wonderful facts and achievements of the students from the past, for the past 10 years and what they have accomplished. And so they are now included on our website, which is really, really terrific to see. And I really encourage all of you to go to our website and look at the scholarship page and view this. It's 7 slides altogether. And they're just really amazing, the facts that these are showing for these students and their accomplishments. And I think that's about it. Again, thank you everybody for your encouragement and help. Thank you.
Thank you, Harriet. That was great. Jean and Linda, I saw Jean, but I didn't see Linda.
Thank you. The Education Committee's report is that we had our February Beyond Black History Month with Plessy and Ferguson. It was a wild success. If you haven't had the chance to see it, it's on the website through the newsletter. Our next Beyond Black History is March 17th, and that has Linda Crump as the presenter, and she's doing an expose on the quilts and some participation by ASALH members. April 21st will be the April Beyond Black History, and that's going to be done by Paul Ruffin, and he's doing about music and the education of music. I want to thank Rita for mentioning the skills part of the ASALH membership, and that is going to be used next year to draw on people who are active in other kinds of activities they wish to share with ASALH. They could be presenters, they could be Beyond Black History Month presenters, they could be the history moment for the general membership meeting. And that's about all of my report this month.
Thank you, Jean. Any
Thank you.
questions for Jean? Joe? Joe, you had a question?
No,
No, okay,
no.
okay. New business. Any new business items? I do want to point out that following the lead of Joe Hurd, next month, the moment in history will be by Hugh Price, the former president of the National Urban League. So you may want to spread the word that Hugh Price will be speaking to us.
I have new business.
All right.
First, I want to thank David for putting this on the web 2 days ago as part of the newsletter. I'm Marcia Kendall Smith, the president of NASPAM, the National Association for the Study and Performance of African American Music, established 50 years ago. And we will celebrate our 50th anniversary online. It's free. All you have to do is register, and Marion put the live link that'll take you straight to registration if you just do that. It's March 16th from 5 o'clock until 9:30 Eastern time. And just briefly, we started 50 years ago as members of MENC. For those of you who come from various parts of the country might remember, the Music Educators National Conference was the largest national music association for all types of musicians, music educators. And their name has now changed to NAFME, the National Association for Music Education. But they were meeting in Atlanta, the Mecca of Black people's institutions. And they did not include Black people, well, maybe one at midnight on their program. So 200 Black professors and teachers, many of them walked over to Morehouse. They were so angry, got there and formed their own organization. It was called the Black Music Caucus. And eventually the name became what it is, NASPAM. Now, this is briefly what you will hear during our celebration. There are sessions, and each session is led by a scholar who has published books about what their session is about. And the first one is meaning, music, and social justice in our anthems. Of course, we know what they are. Lift every voice and sing, we shall overcome, to be young, gifted, and Black, and say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. And the keynote speaker, and I am so proud of this, the keynote speaker is from the largest organization that we walked away from 50 years ago. So you see why I'm so proud of this, that we are recognized and she is there. And I'm also proud of the fact, I gotta say it, she's Black. And you better believe how she had to work to get to that position. And then the quilt speaks. The professor who is presenting this has written 7 books. And she's talking about using quilts in teaching music and the significance of that. And then the next session is Black Music Matters. There is now, in fact, he's the leader, the presenter, Dr. Ed Sarath, in having Black music being central for the undergraduate music curriculum. All of you know that ain't so going on now, but he's doing this at the University of Michigan, and he's doing it very well, and he's published a book, couple of books about it. Then, of course, we have to include rap, hip hop music, and culture in the music curriculum. And that's written, the presenter is another expert. We are ending with a composer who was the first president of NASPAM 50 years ago, T.J. Anderson. He'll be 94 soon, but he also composed the score or edited the score for Treemonisha, but he's presenting his own works. And we are so proud that he's still with us to present to his music at this celebration. We hope that you will join us. Thank you. Any questions?
Marsha,
That was
just
great. That was
quickly,
great.
yeah,
Yes, Harriet.
is it open? Is it open to everyone? I'm sorry, I had to walk away for a minute.
Oh, yes, it is open to everyone. We're paying for this. We just want you to come, enjoy, learn, and go henceforth.
Okay, and the date again?
March 16th.
Okay.
5 o'clock Eastern Time.
How do you register?
This, David put the flyer online 2 days ago, and you go to that and there's a link. You just push the link. It takes you straight to registration. And after you register, it'll be a week, about a week, you'll get a complete packet explaining the content of each session. I've briefly given you what it's going to be and who the presenters are. So you'll get that registration packet with the link, but David has sent out your registration link. And if you have difficulty with that, my name is, I think you've heard it several times today, thanks to Cousin Joe, Marsha Kendall Smith. Every time I see Joe, I said, tell me some more now. What else?
Well, thank you, Marsha. That was good information. I hope everyone goes and looks at it. Is there any other old business? Any announcements? Anybody want to tell us about what they're doing for whatever? No? So then can I get a motion to extend the meeting? Hearing no motion to extend the meeting, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Amen.
Any objections? All the question?
Good meeting. Good meeting.
Okay.
Good meeting.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye-bye.
pleasant day.
Take care. Have a good one, buddy.
Okay.
Happy birthday, Lois.